Okay, well, thank you so much, Lee, for sharing this. And I'm actually so sorry that Prof. Karen is not here. But thank you to our three presenters for those inspiring and thought-provoking presentations. We'll now open our floor for questions and reflections on the topics that, on any of the topics that we shared. Please feel free to raise your hand or post in the chat. Let's keep the conversation going. See in the chat that, oh, Marie, you have your hand up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My question is to Gabriel, who talked about how effective blended learning is, especially in the African context. And maybe you did touch on it and I've missed it, but I was wondering how the students experienced it, because many times when you work in blended learning, there's a homework component connected to that. And what is your experience with the students when you incorporated technology in the blended environment?
Thank you so much for the question. Maybe I'd like to give a disclaimer that I'm not actually involved in teaching, but I'm at the ministry where we supervise that are involved in training. But we do have colleagues like Twambo, who was in a panel discussion earlier in the day. They have been having a project for blended TVET, where they're training teachers, building their capacity. What we have noticed is that from the time we had the COVID pandemic, there's a great, I'd say, greater acceptance by both teachers and the learners on using of blended TVET for both teaching and learning. Of course, there are still challenges, like Karen was sharing in the last presentation, in terms of technology bandwidth. Like just recently, some students have been doing an online entrepreneurship course, and some could not do it while they were still at home because of issues of internet and so on. So generally, I would say there's a great acceptance, and we are doing everything to ensure that people see the need, because I think the reality is that the normal way of teaching TVET, classroom-based, is really not adequate to meet the demand for teaching and learning. And others are in jobs, others are mothers, a lot of other challenges which would otherwise make it difficult for people to be in class full-time for lessons. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gabriel and Marie. Any other questions for our other presenters? So I see here that somebody said, lovely seeing you again, Doctor, and brilliant presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was very refreshing. That was all comments for Dr. Jeffrey. So I'm going to post a question in the chat. I want you to think about this, and then each of you can type an answer, and then let's make this interactive. So the question, let's make this interactive. What's one takeaway from these talks that you're excited to try in your own teaching, research, or work? So I think let's all think a little bit and type something in the chat, and then let's do the waterfall like I've seen earlier today. It was really interesting to see what people is taking away from these 3 pechakuchas. It will be really interesting to see. So please type something in the chat, and then I will tell you when to send. And I hope everyone has something that they will take away from these pechakuchas. I can just imagine that there's a lot. Okay, can I say let's post it? Oh my, is nobody going to say? Okay, Gabriel says students learn with technology and not from it. That's great. Marie said, I like the idea of letting students relate to historical figure, create content around it, and embed cross-cutting competencies. And Dr. Jeffrey says the 3 C's. Yes, Dr. Jeffrey, I have to agree with that because I'm used to the 4 C's. That is now more of 21st century skills. So that was also for me a very interesting thing. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Jeffrey, from your experience, what's the most important design choice educators can make to ensure AI integrated assessments genuinely challenge bias rather than reproduce it?
I think you bring up a good point, and it's the assessment model that we're most challenged with in using AI, with faculty resistance or acceptance or even the learner. I think it's student input, student participation. If we want to reduce the bias, then we need the students to be part of the conversation and not try to design assessment without them. They're going to bring the authenticity, the richness, the real life experience, if you will. And that's what's needed because we're preparing them not just for the academic world, but beyond that. And so if we design anything and leave the student out, well, the simple result is we shouldn't do it. We should always involve them. So.
Okay, I think that's for me, it's easier said as done. What kind of tip will you give us to say, how do I get my students involved in designing these assessments?
Well, I think it starts with, would we be willing to invite them for the formation of the class or the syllabus? If the answer is yes, then to that question, then it's okay to involve them in the assessment. Give them choices. You can still hold the boundaries. You can still say, here's a menu to select from, but I always have another option where they can think of something totally different. We have to agree on it, come to a consensus, but I really want their input. So there's an invitation to jointly design the course together. And that speaks to teamwork and all the other things that employers are looking for today.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you so much. I see that Gabriel says here, I like the consideration of bandwidth in coming up with learning solutions at the University of Eswatini. That's also great. Thank you so much, colleagues, for attending this session. It was really exciting for me to listen to all of the Pecha Kuchas. We are going to take now a 5-minute break before we are going into how cool is that. The first presentation again after that is now also in track 2, how cool is that? It is the presentation's name is let me just see what it says, is International Journey of Educational Technology in Higher Education Submitting and Succeeding. So from Dr. Greg Crew. So let's take a 5-minute break and then we can go on. So I see that there's another question, sorry. How do you balance imported AI content and tools with local cultural and linguistic realities? I don't know, Dr. Jeffrey, will you maybe answer this?
Well, I think it causes us as educators, as designers, to take 2 approaches, right? To look at our own bias, to look at our own culture, and then to take that step back. When we're looking at publication, for example, in our research, we're always looking at a national or international posture. And that causes us to look at other standards that maybe we were unaware of before. And we are so guilty of it in the US because we think we have the only way, or that our way is the correct way, and it's not necessarily. It may be one of the ways or a better way, but we need to find that out by looking at all models. So I think looking at it both from our own perspective, but also from a global perspective. If we're willing to do that, that question will be answered, and the students can help us along the way, especially in online learning where we have international learners already in the mix.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeffrey. Okay, so then we are going to take a quick body break and then we will reconvene in 3 minutes' time. Thank you so much.